Welcome everyone to the Almost Cancelled TV podcast. I am Peter and I'm joined, as always, by Connor.
Can't get rid of me.
You'll be delighted to know that there is less news than last week.
But there's some very important news this week, so it's fine.
It's also worth mentioning we're recording this on Thursday as opposed to Friday, so as always, when cases of this, some stuff might crop up on Friday that won't be in this episode because, you know, obviously we're recording it a little bit earlier, but we'll be in next week.
It does mean we haven't got thoughts on Kenobi yet.
No. Why would you think I'd have thoughts on Kenobi if we record tomorrow?
Because you're going to watch Kenobi tomorrow and you know it.
No, I'm not.
Oh, okay. If we had been recording tomorrow, you would have watched Kenobi tomorrow.
I don't know. Stranger Things is also back tomorrow, so I'm not convinced.
Yeah, who cares about that?
I'm not convinced that I had a rush to do that pilot. That could have waited a couple of days whilst I got my Stranger Things season 4 in. But yes, this is a TV news podcast. We talk about premiere dates, renewals, cancellations, new shows in development, all that kind of stuff. And that's what we're going to get into. So we do, unfortunately, have a trio of Star Wars premiere dates and premiere windows to talk about. One's got a trailer. Connor insisted.
Star Wars is great. I did. You made me watch shitty trailers all the time. You can watch one Star Wars trailer.
I was going to just avoid watching the trailer and just tell you when it's coming and just leave it at that. But Connor insisted. So yeah, the one that's got the trailer is the one that's coming the soonest with the sort of the locked, like specific to the date, which is Andor. It is coming on the 31st of August, and it got a 2-minute trailer along with this today. So,
and what did you think of this trailer, Pete?
There's a ship crashing. Andor's talking about rebelling against the Empire. There's a lot of shady looking Empire dudes drinking tea or something.
Are the ones all in white?
I thought very little of it, to be honest. I didn't get a whole lot. It it kind of felt like it wants me, like, it's kind of assuming that I give a shit already and that I'll care, and it being like kind of dramatic will make me care more. But I don't really care. So
I think it's a very well cut trailer, though. Some trailers are. It doesn't necessarily mean it'll be a good show. I want to make that very clear. It might not be, but I think it's a very well cut trailer with its pacing, and has that really that rhythmic element to it, with the music tying in with the visuals quite nicely. And that goes a long way sometimes.
Can't wait to the sequel show, Star Wars Candor.
It already has a sequel show. It's called Rogue One,
where there's a character who's just very candor with it. Good stuff.
Rogue One is the sequel. Get over it. Go watch that movie again.
It's not a sequel. No. I actually fundamentally disagree with this. Just because something gets a prequel, it doesn't make the thing that was original a sequel to the prequel. The original thing is the base thing, and the other thing's the prequel, and that's what it is. That's how it was made.
In terms of how it was made, yes, 100%.
The Terminator is not a prequel to Terminator 2. That terminology does not work. I refuse to accept it.
I agree. But when you're talking about story narratively, the sequel is in Rogue One.
Shut up. Next up, Mandalorian Season 3 is coming in February. And they also said Katie Sackhoff...
It's a little bit later than it would have been liked.
And they also said Katie Sackhoff is returning.
That's the least surprising thing ever. She was in a couple of episodes last season.
Yeah. Well, she's a sci-fi royalty. She was in Battlestar Galactica, so...
Yeah. She's playing a Mandalorian, so it's all good.
So it's a big get for them to have, an established star from a proper science fiction series in the show.
Yeah. Proper science fiction property, because Star Wars definitely isn't that, is it?
No. What a shite is what it is. And then the other Star Wars thing is that Jude Law is going to be in a Star Wars show called Skeleton Crew. This is the John Watts one that was sort of teased last week.
Yeah. So this is the one that, on paper, if you take out the Star Wars name, appeals to you the most, probably, because they describe it as, that Amblin style thing. For me, I think they mentioned it's going to be about a bunch of 10-year-olds. Yeah, I'm not thrilled about my chance of loving that one.
Do you know how? I mean, you never watched the Arrested Development, I don't think, but you know how in Arrested Development, they did. There was the fake like sort of Judge Judy style show with Judge Reinhold, and the joke was it's Judge Reinhold, so they made a judge show about him. I want Jude Law and Order to be like a thing, or even better, if there's like an actor out there who's like Michael Order or something like that, like Jude Law and Michael Order.
So you can have the Law and Order show.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what I want.
See, I feel like if you do that title, like maybe this is just my background, but that's a comedy sketch show, right? From your comedian duos, like a
sure.
Fry and Laurie.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm picturing, but I don't know if Jude Law can pull it off.
That's fair, I suppose.
Forget about the hypothetical Mr. Order.
Yeah, and then the other Disney Plus show we got a premiere date for coming 30th of November. The Willow series is going to debut.
Yeah, which means I'm going to watch Willow before November for the first time, because I've never seen it, despite it clearly appealing to me.
Oh. Yeah, it was a Ron Howard movie. Warwick Davis, who is no stranger to Star Wars either.
No, he's not.
He is reprising his role as Willow Ufgood. Or Ufgood, maybe. I don't know. I'll say Ufgood.
Well, I'll report back in November.
You can find out for me and tell me.
Yeah.
That's fine.
I'll definitely remember to tell you.
And then, yeah, so that's the premiere date stuff. Yeah, there's some meat. I mean, Disney Plus are announcing some good, and it's good that there is some news like that this week, because obviously we're now in that drought from the networks because they've just blown their load in all the pilots and cancellations and
they
renewals.
need a few weeks to recover.
Yeah, so we're theoretically in a quiet period now for TV news. So buckle in for whatever antics I fill this show with for the next little while.
Thank God, I'm missing at least one of those weeks.
That's a good point. Yeah, Car's on vacation for a week soon, so there will be 1 week missing. In 2 weeks. 3 weeks.
Yes, I'll be here next week still.
Right, so there'll be an episode next week, but there won't be one the following week.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll remind them at the start and the end of next week's show, just to warn them.
Yeah.
But yes. Okay. Next up, I'm going to call this borderline desperate stunt casting. We'll see how you feel. So Jodie Foster is going to star in season 4 of True Detective.
Of course she is. Okay,
What?
yeah, no, I'm with you.
Yeah, so yeah, they're resuscitating this, and their game plan here to make it like a big deal again, because True Detective lost a lot of its luster. People did,
people like season 1, and that's about it.
Yeah, and some people watched season 3, but there wasn't a lot of chatter about it. It kind of felt like it was just kind of been and gone, and that was it.
It was there.
I'm sure it was better than season 2, because season 2 was dreadful.
I feel like we tried the first episode of season 3.
Oh, we did. We watched the first one.
I don't remember anything about it.
It was fine. Obviously, Mahershala Ali is a good actor, but it wasn't.
But I know we watched it, but I don't remember anything actually about it. Didn't stay with me.
But yeah, it's going to be called. So it's getting a title this time. It's not just going to be season 4. It's going to be called True Detective Night Country. So they're going with subtitles to.
That's probably smart.
Yeah, especially since
I think they should have done that since season 2.
Yeah, especially since they've been really, it's been the kind of come and go when it's got a new season rather than a yearly or semi-yearly thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Foster's going to executive produce as well. I.e., she's getting paid quite fondly for this. And she's going to play Detective Liz Danvers in a series which comes from writer-director Isa Lopez and executive produced by Barry Jenkins. What's notable to me about that is that I'm not seeing the name of the dude who did the first couple seasons, right?
Pizzolatto, something like that?
Yeah, which was so the first season, created and written by Nick Pizzolatto, ran for 3 seasons between 2014 and 2018. Yeah, it doesn't sound like he's going to be that involved.
Very interesting.
Which is actually a good sign, to be honest, because he was the problem.
Yeah, because he was, clearly. Because the first season, don't get me wrong, the writing wasn't bad, but it's the direction that put it on the map. And the acting as well, to be fair, but the acting was never the problem with the other seasons, I don't think.
No, it was because even the writing in season 1 actually wasn't that great. Like, it was kind of just hell. If you, I wasn't really that much of a fan of the way it was written. It just happened to have really good direction and good actors, sort of making it work.
It really pulled it together through that. You can overcome the kind of mediocre writing with that, whereas the other seasons couldn't.
No, they really couldn't. Like, season 2
I feel like
was.
he directed season 2 himself. Maybe?
Oh, maybe. Yeah, season 2 was such a slog. So I'm being a little cynical about this because obviously Jodie Foster, her biggest role, the one you think of Silence of the Lambs, you think of Clarice Starling. So putting her in a gritty, there's a murderer on the loose detective series is very much playing into, oh, she was in Silence of the Lambs. Like, that's what this is.
It is a little bit, and it's a little bit unfair because she's a perfectly good actress, and she deserves a shot at this show anyway. And she was in her own merit.
Yeah, she was in good stuff before then. She was in good stuff after that. Like, that doesn't define her that role. But that's why this announcement
are doing. Yeah, that's why they've gone with it. It's because of that more than anything else.
That's why this announcement's a bigger deal than it maybe otherwise would be, is because it's her.
Yeah,
doing
I am
this.
like slightly more interested in this season now, though, knowing that it's not.
Do you feel more comfortable giving it a try, even though you've not watched season 3, because it's not called season 4?
I didn't watch season 2, and I gave season 3 a try.
Fair point. But you feel better about this
anthology. One. I do. I feel better about this one because, one, okay, it's got something that they're just embracing the fact that this is just a true anthology show, that they have the rights to this show to just kind of create when they want. They can rotate in different creatives now. They're not locked to this one writer.
I was going to say, I honestly think each season should be a different, different director, different writer every time, and just let different people go make the best gritty detective story they can.
Exactly, and that has me a lot more hopeful for this. That this might have potential now. I'm not particularly familiar with the writer directors of this season. I don't think I don't recognize the names too much.
Oh, I recognize the names. Isa Lopez, I've definitely seen her name pop up. Was she the one that did? I don't want to speculate because I'm not sure, but I've definitely seen the name pop up. And Barry Jenkins.
Barry Jenkins obviously did Moonlight, but is he not just executive producing?
Yes, yeah. Well, TV's weird though, because like there's one important executive producer, and that might be him.
It could well be, yeah. I'm assuming he's not directing, right?
No.
That's the less interesting part of his potential involvement would have been him directing. So
I'll look up Isa Lopez. It's annoying me now that I can't remember.
Yeah,
but
because I'm not trying to say that she's bad. It's hard to get excited for a name that I'm not personally familiar with.
Okay. This is promising actually.
Go on.
Tigers Are Not Afraid, which is a movie that I did in streams with Tim.
Okay, not seen it.
Very good. Arguably, it wasn't really a full horror movie, so it was maybe a little unsuited for that show. But it was really well directed.
Well, that's good to know.
I knew I'd seen the name. But yeah, interesting. No, that's cool. I've not seen it. I mean, other like stuff, presumably from Mexico, because it was a Mexican film. Some shorts before that, and a couple of feature films, by the looks of it. But has more writing credits than directing credits as well. Also interesting.
She's writing and directing.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
So, I knew I'd seen the name.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't feel bad for not having seen it myself because I've not seen that film. So.
This is
bringing in fresh talent, fresh perspective into the show might be exactly what it needs to actually, survive.
This was actually quite a last minute story. I saw this I'd already done the news, and I saw this on Twitter right before we started recording. We just did Better Call Saul before this, and I didn't really read it. I just sort of threw it in quickly because I was like, oh shit, I should throw that in last minute, and I didn't see that there was a different creative team, so I'm actually way more positive having now looked at the story than I was when I just saw that. And not that I don't like Jodie Foster, she's great, but I just saw it as, it's going to be the same crappy writing, but they've got Jodie Foster as a bit of stunt casting.
You were very cynical about it, and I think it's still fair to be cynical about their reasons for casting her.
Yes,
because yes, it's possible they cast her just because she's great.
Yeah,
but I doubt that was the only motivation.
I'm sure, she won't do the accent, obviously, because she has like a really specific accent in Silence of the Lambs, so it'll feel different. It won't feel like Clarice Starling, but
I really hope so.
It'd be really funny if to say, no, do the accent.
Do it.
Also, there's got a bit in your backstory here about how you get help from a cannibal who was like locked up to solve a murder
Yeah.
20 years ago.
So just don't question it too much. Just go with it.
I say 20, 30 years ago at this point, but you know, doesn't have to be the exact timeline in the show.
No, it's fine. We'll fudge the dates a bit to make it feel different.
Yeah. So yeah. So I'm a little bit more hopeful now that I've seen the creative person behind it. As someone more positive. What's interesting is that Tigers Are Not Afraid is a bit more it's got a gritty side to it, 'cause it's about all these like orphan kids who are living kind of on their own, homeless, right? But it's also got this sort of magical side to it where they're seeing kind of things, and there's like sort of there's like a almost like Guillermo del Toro quality to that movie. And I like the movie.
It's something I could enjoy.
Yeah, I like the movie, and I'm not necessarily always into Del Toro's sort of style, but I would definitely describe it as veering into that kind of realm of like.
So Tim loved it then, is what you said.
Tim loved it. It's kind of the idea that they're in this really dark like place in life, and this dark sort of like upbringing they've got that's not ideal at all. But there's this sort of like magical side that's there to kind of help them through it. There's kind of that.
That sounds like exactly my Saw movie.
But of course,
I should check it out.
The reason why I'm saying all that is that obviously I don't expect that side of that to be in True Detective. So I'm curious.
You say that
the approach,
maybe just maybe, because that first season had that kind of surrealist, weird kind of is this real element to it.
It's not. Yeah, it's not a possibility, I suppose. But so that's the news. Season 4 of True Detective is coming with Jodie Foster and Isa Lopez behind the camera. So cool. Next up, this is a potentially juicy little bit of news, actually. So J.J. Abrams and Bad Robot had a big deal with Warner Brothers a few years ago. And part of that is that they basically ordered his new HBO series, Demimonde, straight to series. And along with a bunch of other things, which I'll mention in a second. But apparently there's a little bit of a the boat's getting a bit shaky here. For a couple of reasons. One is that people in charge now are thinking that Demimonde is like spiraling out of control budget-wise. They don't like how expensive it seems to cost, or it's going to cost. I also, separately from this, but kind of packed in along with their overall deal with Warner Brothers, which is now Warner Brothers Discovery, is that apparently they're pissed at J.J. Abrams because he's claimed certain DC characters and he's supposed to do something with them, but he's still not actively got anything in development with said characters. Superman being the obvious main one that he was supposed to be attached to. So it's like, oh, we can't develop anything else with Superman because JJ is doing something with Superman. But now we're here 3 years later since I think that story came out, and
nothing's even started.
Yeah, it's not like they're in production. They can see, the movie's coming along nicely, because I'm sure if it was, it'd be fine, but it's not.
It sounds like it's barely in pre-production.
Yeah, so it sounds like the overall deal with Warner Brothers Discovery is on a bit of a shaky ground with Bad Robot, which is JJ's company. I can see
the point of view on this. Like, spiraling budgets is something that the studios like that hate, understandably, right?
Yeah, apparently
that can ruin all your projections.
This comes amid talk of potential reevaluation of the deal that Abrams Bad Robot has at Warner Brothers, and it makes sense given that they're under this new merger / management, like they're reevaluating everything that was sort of set up beforehand, and this could very well be one of the things that falls apart because of it. And what's interesting to tack onto this is it the next story I've got? Oh no, it's not. Where's the next story?
Or tab management this.
Okay, all right. No, it's not next. It's actually in the new dramas, so I'll save it for then. But let's just say Bad Robot have a show somewhere else that I don't think has anything to do with Warner Brothers. So they could. It was
always only a first look deal, though, right?
Yeah.
So they could have just passed on it.
Very, very possibly, yeah. But it is interesting. It's just really interesting timing. This is all going down, and then Bad Robot show greenlit over here.
Yeah.
So that's a bit weird, but. Hey ho, interested to see what comes of that. I mean, I'll be honest, like, JJ has been involved in things that I really like, Lost and Fringe being the main ones, but it's notable that he kind of just like started those and left, and other people were the ones who were left to actually make the story work and run it day to day and all that.
How I feel about what ultimately happened with Star Wars, right? With the sequel to, like, he set it up, with Force Awakens.
Oh yeah, but he came back.
No, but this is what I'm getting at. I like what he did. I like what he set up. Ryan Johnson picked up and ran with it and took it in new directions and built on that. I love that. And then he came back and was like, "Oh well, I don't know what to do with this now. What am I meant to do?" And just kind of shit the bed.
So I have to say, I wasn't necessarily on board with him as the Superman guy. As time has went on, I am less and less convinced that he's the guy for that job. So I'm not really that upset about it. Admittedly, I'm making a healthy point of not being too attached to what DC or Warner Bros. Are doing with their movie properties, because when you see headlines like the Flash movie has 26 writers like credited, it's like, well,
actually,
it was someone stupid like that. May have been 22, 24. I don't know what it was.
In the 20s.
It was in the 20s, yeah.
That's still extreme.
The exact number does not matter at that point.
Anything in double digits is extreme, let alone
for sure,
in the 20s.
Yeah. Hell, even 5 is extreme. Like I think
5's a lot, yeah.
Yeah, like I think like 2 is fine, 3 is okay. Once you're over 3, I start to. I mean, it can be like kind of weird, like because it can be like, okay, story by these 2 people, but then these 2 other people came in and actually wrote the script. So technically you're at 4 at that point. But the way it works, it's not actually like 2. That's fine, kind of.
Yeah, and then you might have like, oh, we actually had a first draft that got almost entirely discarded, but because of the way the guild, but we still have to credit them.
But 26.
Yeah, that is monstrous.
Too many cooks in the kitchen, one might say. Because what that tells me is that this is not 26 people around a table collaborating. Although that would probably just be as messy, to be honest.
At least 5 of those are drafts that got almost entirely thrown out.
Yeah, this is drafts and drafts and drafts and rewrites and all sorts.
Just different people coming in because they got fired.
Yep. Anyway, next up, we have a replacement for a show coming up at Paramount Plus. Tim Roth is going to replace Ian McShane in the Australian drama series Last King of the Cross, because Ian McShane's pulled out due to health concerns. And
shame.
The I think the creator put a statement saying, "Oh, we wish him the best. Hope for a speedy recovery." But he's pulling out, and Tim Roth's stepping in. So Tim Roth's a good actor as well. So I'm sure they're not.
Tim Roth's good. I think to a lot of these points, I think I prefer McShane, generally speaking. But it's not like he's pulled out because of creative difference or anything like that. Hey, you got look after his health first.
It's like, it's unfortunate, but it's not unfortunate in like a bitter way. It's just unfortunate in a fate way. Yeah. So worth mentioning though for sure. So that's cool. Just to get serious here for a minute, CBS had to pull the FBI season finale because of the shooting this week. The big tragic shooting in Texas. Unsurprising. This almost, well, not almost every time, but it feels like this is frequent enough that this happens after an event like that, where there was an episode coming up of a TV show that probably is touching on the subject matter and needs to be addressed. So apparently the finale was going to be about preventing an event at a school, similar enough anyway to the one that went down, that they're pulling the episode for now. I'm sure they'll air it at some point in the future.
Usually what happens, but yeah.
And for the record, I'm not going to use this as a cheap way to reference Buffy, because I could, but I'm not going to. I've got more class.
No, you're gonna be better than that in this very serious topic.
I'm not going to use that. So.
It's something that it's been happening for a long time with TV shows having to pull things. There's always something that lines up. I remember there's the Friends episode with that was airing around 9/11, right? That had a Twin Towers thing joke in it.
Oh yeah. So you think that's bad? Decades. There was a pilot that was about to air at that time, and I think the show basically just got cancelled because of it. Where it was about someone trying to blow up the World Trade Center, and it's like the timing is just. Like, obviously it's not their fault, but you can just imagine, like, the morning of that happening, and obviously the shock is starting to settle in, and, like, where, like, you're starting to think about life a bit as it's happening, and the people who work on that show realizing, oh, wait a minute, like, we can't
do this.
We can't ever show that episode. Like, that's just it.
Did it ever come out anywhere, like, leak or anything?
I don't
I remember hearing about it, but I just don't remember if it ever came out anywhere.
I think it's that thing where it ended up just sort of derailing whatever the show was, so they just never, none of it ever aired. So I don't think.
Yeah,
from what I remember,
I'm surprised. Yeah,
and I can't remember what the show was called, so forgive me. I know people probably want to know what it is so they can go research it themselves, but I can't. I can't remember off the top of my head. So it's unfortunate. It's just it's one of these things. Yeah, obviously it was shocking news this week. It was sad. I mean, this is not the platform to talk about it, but obviously, it did not.
It'd be nice if after 20, 30 years, if they could just sort something out. So maybe this didn't happen on a bi-monthly basis. It feels like.
Yeah. We're going to move on quite quickly, but yes.
Yeah.
There is something that could be done to help prevent this. I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm not going to go into it any further. But I will just direct you to the Onion headline of, that they always bring out every time. In fact, I think they covered their whole front page on it this time. It just, there's no way to prevent this, says the only country where this regularly happens, or something, whatever the exact phrasing is, something to that effect. So, go and have a look. But anyway, so that's the FBI finale being pulled for now. So a new show in the comedy/cartoon section. We have a new preschool Scooby-Doo show being ordered by HBO Max and Cartoon Network. It's a CGI animated comedy series called Scooby-Doo and the Mystery Pups, and it will join the Cartoonito preschool block in 2024. This is really far in advance to announce like a kids show.
Yeah, but they have to. The animated shows are so far ahead, right?
But hey, here's the logline. As counselors in the Lakeside Sleepaway Camp, Scooby and Shaggy don't know much about canoes and archery, but they do know how to solve a mystery. I think you'll find it's the rest of the team that know how to solve the mystery. They two are pretty useless from what I recall.
Sometimes they accidentally stumble into it.
In a summer filled with nature hikes, rafting trips, and fireside ghost stories, the goofy, good-hearted, and can-do duo will share their love for chasing clues with three young camper pups destined to become their own preschool version of Mystery Incorporated. So there's like puppy characters. So this is definitely a preschool take on the whole thing.
It is. I love that they're doing it like summer camp. They're doing like, hey, let's do Friday the 13th for Scooby-Doo for kids. Even smaller kids.
I mean, they're using the phrase "sleepaway camp." That's also a horror movie.
Right, exactly. They're very intentionally choosing that setting.
Yeah, so tis what it tis. Yeah, I mean, I grew up on Scooby-Doo. I love Scooby-Doo as a kid. Obviously, the new ones aren't made for me, and that's okay. But
the point is, they're going to be indoctrinating the 5-year-olds so that they're ready for the camp slashers.
But they're also doing the adult animated show where Velma's like solving actual murders or something like that.
You're hitting all audiences at once.
Why not just make that live action? Go on, give us a live action like Riverdale-esque Scooby-Doo where it's the team solving murders.
Didn't they do that recently? The live action Velma and Daphne thing.
That wasn't like, yeah, but that was still kind of like teen focused. I'm saying give us something that's more.
You just mentioned Riverdale. Then I'm waiting for the CW to announce their Scooby-Doo show. Oh my god, I can see
that's
it.
Warner Brothers. they can do Scooby-Doo.
Riverdale is coming to an end. They need a replacement.
They'll call it Mystery Inc. Oh,
100%.
That's what the name will be, and you'll have and that's the thing. Scooby-Doo's made to have 4 21-year-olds in these roles, and then I guess the only problem
damn near perfect.
Is the crappy CG dog, but people will forgive it. It's fine.
Yeah. We'll worry about that later.
All right, on to the Javas. I only have a few of these, really. Basically, I've got 2 stories.
And neither of them should be CBS.
One that's a bundle of shows, and then this one first up, which is Bad Robot, who have had a show ordered by Apple TV. They're doing a live-action Speed Racer TV show. So,
I saw this headline. I didn't click on it, so I didn't realize it was Bad Robot connected.
Yeah, so they're staffing a writer's room right now. Speed Racer is a Japanese media franchise about automobile racing, first launched as a manga series titled Mac Go 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 by Tatsuo Yoshida. I didn't know that was the title originally, but details are kind of weak just now. But obviously it's a proper at the very least a lot of us may have seen the movie that came out about 12 years ago. So
that long ago.
Yeah. So it's going to be written by Hiram Martinez, who worked on Snowpiercer, I assume the show, and Ron Fitzgerald, who worked on Westworld. Again, I assume the show.
Definitely the show at this point, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, the movie's all. But Snowpiercer, it technically could be the movie because it's not that old.
it could have been, but yeah, I'm assuming the show.
Yeah, apparently it's come back to the original source material, and it's going to be based on the '60s manga series. So I guess they're trying to bill it as the faithful to the original source kind of thing. Which sure, as opposed to being based more on the cartoon, which I think the movie was more kind of inspired by.
That makes sense.
Well, whether that means it's that different, I don't know. I don't really know what the differences are, but yeah.
I am not a speed racer connoisseur, unfortunately.
Yeah. So then the final story, Deadline actually did report on one of these separately. So there is an article, but there's not really much there to be honest. Sony were doing a conference call for a bunch of different things, and one of the departments was the entertainment group. And they just casually mentioned 3 shows that are in development. So there's no details here, but luckily, because they're all based in games that we're familiar with, we can still sort of talk about them a bit. 2 of them have actually got platforms attached as well. So first up is Horizon, as in Horizon Zero Dawn, Horizon Forbidden West. It's got a TV show in the works at Netflix. Which is interesting because I feel like the budget for that has to be quite healthy.
It's perfect because a bland game for a bland platform.
I actually finished Horizon Zero Dawn not long ago, and it's a decent enough game, right? I will say that the premise of Horizon excites me way more than the game ever actually did. Like, you tell me mech dinosaurs.
Robot dinosaurs. I should be so in.
But it's about Ubisoft and its storytelling and how it progresses and its open world dynamics. But obviously, the open world dynamics aren't that big a deal here because it's a TV show, so those drawbacks won't be a part of it.
It is. I'm pretty familiar with the story in general, though, just because of all I've seen. I know the twists and stuff like that.
Yeah, the first game has kind of like some reveals towards the end, which I can definitely see being the end of a season 1 of like stuff going on.
Maybe even a season 2, to be honest, for that, because there's quite a lot of content in that first game still.
I would feel the story's pretty stretched out if you're doing that, but I'm saying that as someone who thought the story was kind of dull
I
for
agree.
the most part. So
what I'm saying is this is a Netflix show, so it's going to feel padded. So there's going to be at least 2 episodes that are like, oh yeah, these are side quests.
Yeah, I think the big thing for me is I didn't really like a lot of the characters that you interacted with, and so much of the game is talking to characters and
that's a problem.
Doing their quests and stuff. And I think I am very critical of that stuff. I can be very, very quickly just sort of disinterested. It was the same with Ghost of Tsushima. It's largely why I don't
loved it badly.
Yeah, it's largely why I don't like Ubisoft games. The exception that I can think of off the top of my head is something like Witcher 3, where I do actually get invested in all the stories that the characters sort of like open up to, and I get more into it. But part of the like, is there potential here for something? Yes, I do think I don't. At this point, sadly, I don't trust Netflix to be the place to make it work. But
no, me either.
Yeah,
but you'll watch it anyway. Let's be honest. At least the first episode.
Yeah, just to sum it up for people who don't know anything about it, just to make it clear what we're talking about here. Horizon Zero Dawn is set in a future, but things have kind of went back and like to a Stone Age. Not Stone Age. Maybe that's unfair, but it's kind of like a retro future where it's post-apocalyptic, but then like the greenery has then kind of like grown over everything, so it's kind of like the olden times again. But bizarrely, there's these like robot dinosaurs
of high-tech things like robot dinosaurs.
And part of the mystery is, okay, why is the robot dinosaurs? Why did the world like fall apart? What exactly is going on here? Why did we turn back into being tribes again and kind of things? So that's kind of what the show's dealing, or the story's dealing with a lot of. So and the main character Aloy has a lot of mystery because she's kind of like, she was found as a baby, so there's kind of like some mystery there. But yeah, that's Horizon. The second one, this is at Amazon, this has been developed at, is God of War, which I think does lend itself more to a TV show more than Horizon does.
I agree. What's really interesting to me about this is, are they just going from the God of War 2018 and going from there? Or do they want to show some? Because I think there's obviously 3+ games, 3 mainline games of story plus side games before that.
Honestly, like, I could see them going either way. I could see the argument being, no, we want to go full Kratos, but the problem is that he's not as sympathetic. I could see them saying, for both the reason of we want him to be more sympathetic, so it makes sense to start him, and maybe have the odd flashback where we still get to see some cool stuff.
I was going to say, I think flashbacks are maybe the way to go.
But you have his relationship with his son, and in the 2018 game, to be the building block of why we care about the story, and him being this sort of like sort of tough but reluctant father who's trying to like grow into that role.
Yeah. If I'm being a cynic, right now Norse mythology is kind of hotter than Greek, right? The Vikings are popular, right?
And also, I think in the same way with Last of Us, I think the idea of being a bit more relevant to the games that are currently coming out. So the sequel's coming out, it just got rated
allegedly still this year. Well, maybe actually, yeah.
It just got rated in Korea, so it may actually make this year. I didn't believe it.
Yeah. I didn't either until I saw that headline. I'm like, maybe they're gonna pull this off. Those mad bastards.
Yeah. So that may be coming out this year. So the fact that that's still continuing, and that's maybe going to be a trilogy all in with like this, the story of him and his son. I could see there being a third game that kind of caps that off. So that's going to be at least another 2 or 3 years, maybe even 4 years later. So if they do a show that's based around him and his son and that relationship, and you have that going for a few seasons, they may actually work out nicely. Where they might finish a 5th season around the time the third game comes out. The way the game development in TV goes,
possibly. I did see something before that there might only be 2 games to this.
Oh, really?
Norse saga, and then I'll move on.
I'm just assuming because trilogies are the thing,
right? I did see something that I don't know if it was official or not, but there was a lot of heavy speculation that it was just going to be a duology.
This is funny actually, because this is a batch of things that we can actually talk about because we've both played God of War.
we have authority on this.
Yes, I do think that story lends itself to a season of TV.
Comfortably, yeah.
There's a lot of wacky characters. Obviously, there's some big stuff that will cost a lot. But I think unlike Horizon, where you're constantly running into these big robot dinosaurs that will feel like you're sort of hiding on the TV show if you're trying to like limit how many you see, I think with God of War, you can do a lot of smaller things, and then you have an episode where there's a dragon. And you spent a lot of money on the dragon this episode, but you can kind of, it wouldn't feel like they're betraying the game by not having big things every episode.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that you can do with costuming effects as well, as opposed to having a lot of necessary CG kind of big spectacles.
Because there's like trolls and stuff that you could have someone in makeup with some perspective trickery to make work. Yeah.
It's like the dark elves, stuff like that.
I mean, I would almost prefer to do that than just have it all be CG.
I definitely would, yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there's some moments you have to do CG for the action, but like,
of course, yeah.
I think a lot of good makeup effects would make it really sing as a show, to be honest.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think the smart thing is probably set in the 2018, the Norse mythology stuff with the son. I think it's easier to sell as a TV show as you've got this heart and attachment to it. You've got this relationship beyond Kratos just being on his own. But I would like to see flashbacks.
I think you'll get. I think that's how you pad it out for a season of TV. I think you can do an episode where you actually like admit something from his past, and you can you just bookend it with the present day, but you can do almost like a whole episode in like his past and show some cool stuff that way. Or
roughly 2/3 into the season.
Yeah. Or sprinkle some throughout. Like maybe like he does that thing where every time he's like sort of like almost bonding with his son, he remembers how much of a bastard he used to be. So you get a glimpse of like something awful.
You do the maybe you open it with like a nightmare, like a dream sequence, like a nightmare. Like he's reliving one of those moments, and he wakes up and it's present day. He's in that hut. He's in that cabin, right?
I think for brand synergy and like helping sell the games that are coming out now and are like the ones that you would recommend to people now, and vice versa, selling the show based on the games, I think the modern games make a lot more sense.
I agree, and like I said, I actually really like the older games. I'm a big fan of them. I still think that if I'm adapting it for a TV show, they're a much harder choice.
And I know they'll probably get someone and like make him look like Kratos, but I'd be perfectly happy with just getting the guy who does the voice. Obviously looks way different, but I think the voice being
he's got a physicality to him that can pull off Kratos anyway.
Oh, he's a big tall guy. Yeah, he's got the
hell yeah. I'd be 100% down for just screw it. Cast him as Kratos. Do it.
Yeah, he is a bit older now though, so I don't know if maybe that would be a factor. Maybe he can't do the action.
Yeah, maybe, but older Kratos is kind of what you need for that current period of the games. Don't get me wrong, he's pretty older than Kratos looks, because obviously he's obviously very old, hundreds of years, so to speak, right at this point.
But he's not a human. He's like
yeah, he's like demigod.
Yeah,
but yeah, oh, I can definitely see it going well, and I would, yeah. Was it Christopher Judge? Is that his name?
Oh, sounds right. So,
Yeah,
so
I
that
think that's his
sounds
name.
right, yeah.
And he would be absolutely great in the role in live action. I'd be all down for that.
Yeah, he's yeah, that'd be cool. I don't think they're going to do that, but I think it would be neat to have the voice and just like, oh, I can just look different. I suspect they're going to do the opposite though, which is they'll get someone, shave them bald, make them look like Kratos, and then the guy is going to have to do his best in the voice.
Yeah,
that's what I think is going to happen, but that's okay.
hey, it happened with Henry Cavill in Witcher.
Sure. What I do think Amazon is potential, and not that Amazon make nothing but gold. They've made some mediocre stuff, but stuff like The Boys does fill me with hope that they can put out good stuff.
And we know just from the amount they're willing to spend on like the Lord of the Rings show. I know we're not seeing that yet, but we know the budget that they were pouring into that.
Yeah, I mean,
they're willing to spend money.
I did feel a little bit miffed at like how Wheel of Time looked, because I thought that looked a bit shit. But obviously, Lord of the Rings is a bigger name, so I get that that'll cost more. But I'm sure God of War, because it's this collab with Sony and because it is a big property. I mean, Wheel of Time fans may argue it, but I do think God of War is a bigger thing in the
Wheel of
zeitgeist.
Time is a huge book franchise.
Aye, to book nerds.
Wrong. Yeah, to anyone who's into kind of genre fiction, you have heard of that series. But God of War being, you can just look at the sales figures, the amount the amount of reach it has. There are probably more people who've heard of that.
For sure. So I think there's a lot of potential, both in where it is, but also just as a translation. I think it's a better character story, I think, and I think I definitely enjoyed the story of the game more. I mean, I enjoyed the gameplay more as well than Horizon, but just looking at the story, because that's what's more important here. Which is funny, because if you ask me, what do you prefer, Norse mythology or robot dinosaurs? Like, I would pick robot dinosaurs every time, but having played both these games,
I have a lot tougher of a choice. But in these particular examples, it's not even close, is it?
I grew up in Power Rangers. Robot dinosaurs have a.
I grew up on Power Rangers as well. Power Rangers is cool.
Special place in my heart. But yeah, and then the third show. This is obviously one that doesn't come with a story. And there's no platform for this yet, but they're developing a Gran Turismo TV show, which
what I'm sensing is they want some of that Fast and Furious money.
I could see that, but I think it would be a racing show. Like, it would be racetracks still. I think. Maybe. Don't get me wrong. I could see them having they'll do like a street race at some point between the main characters because they've got beef with each other, but I do think it'll still revolve around. No, there's a circuit and there's races and they're trying to win a competition. I'm sure it'll still have these sports movie sort of framing for the story, if you will.
Quite likely, at least for the first season.
Yeah. This could also be really expensive if you think about whether it's the actual stunt work or CG. Doing a lot of races with fancy cars.
Cheap.
Yeah, it's not going to be cheap. So,
and especially if you're doing Gran Turismo, there is an expectation on fancy cars, not beating up things. You can't really throw in muscle cars like you do in Fast and Furious. You can have some, but it's mostly you're looking at supercars.
This one's more of a blank slate, and it's really just a name, and we know it's going to be about cars. But other than that, it can be anything. So, which is both good and bad. It's bad in the sense that we can't really predict much, and there's not really a framework to use for it.
It's hard to be excited for it either.
Yeah, so it's hard to be excited for it. But on the upside is that it literally could end up being the greatest thing ever, because the right creators could just come in and say, "We've got a great idea for a car-related story," and boom, they just make gold, and it can be anything at once. So, that's the possibility. Yeah, obviously it didn't turn out so hot from what I understand. I've not seen it. But in the same vein, that Battleship, okay, other than the fact that there's some ships.
I forgot that movie exists, and the only thing I remember about it is Rihanna was in it.
Yeah. Other than the fact that there's some ships being sunk, you can do anything with it. Obviously, it got a very lukewarm reception. No one cares about it. But in theory...
Alternatively, we both really like the Clue movie.
That is true.
Which is kind of a similar premise of, hey, you got to do a murder mystery, basically, and, in this style of house.
Yeah, and that's basically all you've got to go on. But yeah, it's a fun movie. Yeah, so in the same vein, Gran Turismo could be. It's just all down to what is it actually going to be when it's made, because
it's got a lot more free reign than the other two shows in this.
Yeah, for sure. So interesting. It is funny because obviously The Last of Us is like coming next year. That's like nearly, I mean, relatively speaking, nearly here. Still, I mean, it's still half a year at least away, but we know when it's coming. It's already been shooting, so on and so on. I do think it's interesting that Sony are actively trying to make TV shows and movies out, because obviously Uncharted came out this year, so they're making a conscious effort saying all these IPs we have in video games, why can't they also be a big thing elsewhere too? So, and some of them
took them long enough, right?
Yeah, and their storytelling in a lot of their games is considered very good. Like Uncharted, God of War, Last of Us, like these games are usually praised for their great storytelling. So
yeah. Somehow you ended up with the current Uncharted movie.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I don't think we really need to see it to have understand that it was terrible, right?
Well, Sony Pictures, by and large, don't make good movies, but Sony TV did have a hand in Breaking Bad, so like better track record.
They got one up on them for sure.
Yeah, I don't know what the exact role they're credited as, but they did release the physical Blu-rays, so I know they're involved. They're at least a distributor, if nothing else. So there you go. That's the news. That's the news of the week in the TV land.
There was some news.
It was still a healthy amount, honestly. It just wasn't the 2-hour gauntlet.
There wasn't like a lot of stories, but I think they were mostly quite interesting stories.
They were meaty, yeah, because it was like, here's some games getting turned into things. There was a few Star Wars things. There's,
That True Detective story ended up being quite interesting.
It was, and that was a last minute addition.
Yeah.
So that was cool. And just This Is Us ended this week. I didn't realize it was finishing, but there was a bunch of stories.
I didn't see anything about that.
About series finale. It was an emotional farewell, apparently. So hopefully people
I would have expected that from that show, to be honest.
Yeah, hopefully people who like the show were satisfied with its ending. Just on principle, I always root for a good ending. So
yeah, definitely. And I mean, I watched the first few episodes of that show. It was well made. It was definitely for its audience, I imagine they'd have loved it.
Yeah. So very cool. But that is the TV news for the week on Almost Cancelled. So thank you very much for joining us. Of course, I'll just remind you again that we'll have an episode next week, but we'll be skipping a week after that. So just keep that in mind going forward. As a planned week off. But we'll be back next week. So let us know what you thought of the news this week in the comments. Like, subscribe, ding the bell for notifications, all that stuff. Of course, you can get us on the Twitters at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. And of course, head over to patreon.com/mailfuzztv and support us over there for as little as $1 per month if you can. Or hit the thanks button on the YouTube that's there now. All support is obviously greatly appreciated. But that is the show. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?